Hello, Alex Lafkus here. I'm going to do a little tying today, and I'm going to tie the little mini brush head, which this one is very abused. So we need one that looks a little prettier. We're going to do olive and white. A couple things you're going to need. I'm going to tie these on, I'm trying to keep them small, so it's a Trout Predator 610, TP 610, number 1 Ahrex hook. Pretty simple there, just a small straight shank hook. You can use a small B10S too if you want, whatever. I'm going to add a 10mm shank to the back. So that's just going to be for a little wiggle tail on it. Got small polymer chenille. For the body, I have a Hoffman, or a Whiting they call it now, rooster saddle in olive. For the tails, you can use schlop-in, whatever you got laying around. Chinese strung saddles work good too. 2 different colors of craft fur, one for bottom, one for top. And then I don't have the label on here, but this is it says it on the back, Flash Blend Baitfish brush. This is a 1-inch brush that I will trim in about half and just get a few wraps at the head. There's not much material to this, so you don't need a ton of the brush to help it kick. And just a little bit of white bucktail and 1 piece, a little bit of white schlop-in to give it the just a wrap on the front of the shank. Pretty easy fly. This is just the kind of downsized. I tie them all the way up to like 4 inches maybe on a single hook, and I'll just start going bigger into like 1 and 2/0 hooks to do that. But today I just want to tie a little mini one to fish. It'll kick good. It fishes good this time of year. Carry them in all my bait fish stuff. Yellow, yellow, brown, olive, and white, chartreuse and white. But those are just kind of the colors I tend to run when I'm running bait fish patterns. That's about everything. I'm going to connect it with 30-pound Maxima Chameleon. I think that's all I need. Oh, I've got this is Danville Flymaster Plus 140. I'll use this. I'll also use 210 sometimes to reverse tie the bucktail. That's why I'm using it, is just for the reverse tying of the bucktail. You want something that bulks up. You don't want gel spun. It's too slick and things will start slipping. So I like this Flymaster Plus. Seems to work good, so we're gonna get it started. This is a nice little summer streamer to run. Obviously the day we went, it was all micro trout, and we got them all on a black ghost. Show you how to tie one of those if you guys need, just let me know. Super simple though, probably don't need any help with that one. So I'll show you this one. This is one I like to run a lot. I'll run it a lot fall, any low water situation really. Had really good luck on bright sunny days in the spring, just downsizing in lower clear water. And also in the fall as well, as temps start getting a little bit more right and we get out of the summer heat and more into the dropping water temps of late summer. So here we go. So we're going to start by adding our 10mm shank in there. You can see this is one of the older styles. So I'm going to get some thread going on it, kind of pinch it down. Ball a little thread up right at the eye there that isn't closed all the way. I have a feeling that's why they might have changed the design on these. Ugh. There we go, just about a half a spool of thread, and it's finally closed off. Trim the tag. We're just gonna throw, I just already pre-selected a couple of very short olive feathers. We're just going to we're going to just add these, just kind of measure them up, make sure they're as even as you can get them. I'm going to tie them right in on the back. Usually when I do this, I leave a couple of, with any hackle, just old dry fly tire in me, I leave some teeth on the back of on the feathers to help dig in. Just gonna play with it and make sure they kind of get in there straight. Once again, it's all kind of relative because once you start fishing them, they'll never look the same. So we just try to get it, you know, to suffice for what I'm trying to do. Next thing is a little white piece of schlop, and this is just kind of to build up a little. Well, it does two things. It gives it a little bit different color to it, and at the head. So it'll pop sometimes too. You know, if you do like a, you know, if I'm doing like chartreuse in white, and I just run white tails, it's gonna be, you know, that chartreuse is really gonna pop. With this lighter olive and then this white hackle, it doesn't necessarily pop too much, but just kind of covers off that shank a little bit. And maybe a little mix of color. It might be a little too long, but whatever. It's the color that was... Actually, this was the feather that just happened to be laying on my fly tying desk, so I felt it was a perfect one to use. I'm kind of like that sometimes. You know, you can add your flash as you want. Like I've said a million times before, I'm not too into the flash thing, so we'll do a couple whip finishes here, 2 or 3, whatever. But I'm, you know, like I've said a million times before too, I'm a super lazy fly tyer. I want things that are quick, easy, and produce, do what I want them to do. That's always more what I'm looking for than, ooh, let me make it look like this or look like that, and whatever. I'm basically looking for how does it behave in the water, and I get it with this. So you might as well keep it simple. That way, if a client loses 3 of them in a day, I'm not going to pout about it. Well, I will pout about it, but I can also go home and tie a few quick. As all of my clients know, I will pout about it. I will complain. I will tell them that they're wasting days of my life forcing me to have to tie flies more. But now that I spend 15 minutes a fly versus 45 minutes a fly, it's not as bad. Excuse me, knock that camera. Gonna drive you guys crazy, make you seasick. Seasick sitting on the couch. Once again, like we did on the walnut or whatever you want to call that stupid thing. That little circus peanut variation with the wool head. We're always attaching our thread and mono the same way, just for a little bit of play. You know, you can tie these straight shank too, like with it just off the back without the little kicker tail. The advantage of the kicker tail is these foul a lot less. That's the problem with that thinner thread. You can tie these with the feathers on the back and some sort of stiffening agent like Bucktail or whatever underneath it, and they'll work fine. The advantage of just doing that little flicker tail on the back is they will foul a lot less. And, you know, flies foul for multiple reasons. A lot of times it's because you've rushed your back cast, and that drives me absolutely crazy. So I like the little flicker tail, getting out my Daly's Ozark Fly Fisher, getting out my small pearl from the Daly's. Bought some extra packs while I was down there, and I still have some. And this is a mess, but I think I have one short strand in here. But who knows if I'll ever find it. So we'll just take a short chunk off one of these and go from there. You don't need much. This is just kind of filler. You know, it's just so you don't see the hook shank, essentially. And most of it's covered up, but this is about the extent of the flash I put on a lot of these flies. It seemed like when the water's dirtier, like when I tie black and chartreuse flies that I like to fish in a little bit more off-colored water, I do have a tendency to run a little bit of pearl in them, you know, or something, whatever. I'm kind of anti-flash. You can see I'm not even stacking this super tight because whatever, I don't really care. You know, and I do kind of have all sizes of this stuff because based on the size of fly I'm going to tie, I'm gonna vary the length of this Palmer chenille, and that's about enough. You know, I don't want to crowd the eye. That's the biggest thing anytime you're reverse tying bucktail. Oops, sorry. That's the biggest thing whenever I'm reverse tying bucktail, is give yourself plenty of room. I can always fill it up with, you know, when you finish your fly or whatever, but kind of the key is to give yourself enough room to build that, you know, that kind of thread dam or whatever you want to call it, that gets that bucktail to lean back. I'm just going to go in. This is an old white bucktail, but I'm still in the process of trying to run out of as many materials as I can, and this is the next thing on the chopping block, which makes me excited. Every time I can throw a bucktail away or something, I feel happy, because I'm not sure I will go through everything I own currently before I die. So we're going to try to make a little progress so my wife will still miss me when I pass and not hate me for all the crap I leave her with. I mean, small steps here, small steps here. So now the next thing I'm going to do is I'm thinning out this buck hair and whatnot. This has kind of got, I'd say shorter tips, which is good on these smaller flies. You always use a lot more material on these smaller flies. As far as the bucktail goes, it tends to be denser and more thick because, so you can see I'm kind of measuring this up. So I'm going to go about from the eye back, you know, as you can see there, just a little long, you know, so the tips kind of match there, because I'm coming back, but that extra excess that you're seeing is what's going to be rolled over. So essentially it's going to end up about that length back, kind of where the tips are touching the schlop in there. But in order to get that, I need to trim it up there near my thumb, because I'm going to flip it, spin it around, and reverse tie it. So that gives me the extra product to do that with. And I'm going to add some craft fur on this one too. So that also allows you to kind of play with the amount of bucktail you put on there, because I'm not going to use much craft fur, but I'm going to use just enough to kind of fill the area. So what I'm doing with this is I'm spinning it around the hook. I want it to be kind of even all the way around the hook. I'm going to tighten it down. I'm going to kind of take my thread back here in between some of this buck hair and just see if I can't get it to lock in a little better. That seems like that's in pretty good shape there. Now I'm going to flare it out. Well, if I can find my $1 packer, I'll get it, but if not, someone gifted me a fancy one a few years ago, so I guess we'll try that. Then the next thing I'm going to do is kind of just push this buck hair back and really put it down. Then loosely take my thread to the front. Then after I do that, I'm going to give it a look, and you can tell it's kind of messed up in there. Kind of even it out so it's even all the way around. Pack it back again. And this is where you kind of really get into that thread dam. I'm going to start up at the eye. Kind of the key is to make a nice even taper going back. That's where your thread doesn't totally slide off and leave you with just a big ball of thread at the front. You kind of just build a conic shape or cone going back. Kind of stack it. You guys have probably seen it from a lot of, you know, the things Blaine does, if you watch a lot of these fly tying videos. The reason I started tying this fly too was I used to tie a lot of smaller 2-hook double deceivers, and man, you know, for every one you got that swam perfectly, you'd get one that swam horribly. Now, what I found with doing these little brush heads, and I've kind of, you know, obviously I started tying these more in the 6 and the 8 range, and then just started downsizing it for, you know, different situations. That should be about right. Yep, there's a little flare. Yep, that's about right. And I know I have a lot of room there, but that's okay, because I'm going to add some craft fur and it'll be fine. So I started tying them because those 2-hook double deceivers, you know, they're really finicky on how they swim. And once I went to the brush, at least I got a consistent action. Some of the double deceivers I tied would go real side to side, which I liked. But then, man, you'd burn through a lot of hair and a lot of hooks trying to replicate that same presentation. And it seems like there's no real rhyme or reason why. I've tried weighting different ways, and some ways make it more consistent than others. But to get it consistent every time was kind of a struggle. The other thing I do with these flies a lot that get me a lot of bites is like I'll strip them and then pause them and just pop the rod or just wiggle the rod tip. And sometimes that just gets that tail kicking enough to where it's not leaving the face of the fish, but it is giving it movement right in front of the fish. And when you're trying to dead drift one into a spot or somewhere you know there's a big brown, a lot of times just extending that dead drift a little longer to get that fish to trigger, and just a little bit of tail kick can seal the deal a lot. And that is why I do that. So when I'm trimming this craft fur too, I kind of still triangle it off. So like my first cut is kind of there, and then I'll trim it a little longer, closer to the eye, just to build that little better triangle going down. Might have left a little excess there, but we'll get back in there and get it off. It's kind of hard with all the cameras, or the one camera and the 8 million lights, to do this as clean as I typically can. But so I've kind of switched off tying a lot of the 2-hook deceivers and have gone more to this. You know, I think that's one of the biggest issues people have too with streamer fishing, is they work that fly really aggressively, and you know that works some of the times, but it sure don't work all the time. You know, when you're adding this crafter too, you can't see me doing it right now, but I'm always kind of just fluffing out a bunch of it and then, you know, brushing out the underfur or whatever it is, the fine stuff or the short stuff that just adds bulk but not actual material to the fly you're trying to do. So I will always pull out the short stuff, and then I'll pull on the tips to even them up. That way you get a little bit more out of your craft fur instead of, you know, tying 3 flies out of a full patch of it. And like I said before, this is not much craft fur. This is just enough to give it a little bit more cover of that bucktail. I just want a little hint of it, just kind of fill it in a little bit, make it look a little bit more full. And when I'm doing it, I'm usually putting like 2 wraps in and then just kind of pulling it to the sides and kind of evening it all up 50-50, like a half and half. The other thing I've found with these flies is they are extremely durable. Like, you know, a lot of my clients are fishing these, and it's not terribly uncommon to catch 12 to 15 fish on one. And boy, that goes a long ways. Sometimes clients will steal them. That makes me less than happy, but it does happen. And they always want the one they caught the big one on. I'm not sure that they don't realize how happy I am that one of them's swimming good enough to catch a big one. Then, of course, they want to take it home. Then I am left having to tie another one. Although, like I said, the consistency of the swim is there. So it's not hard to replicate the pattern. And that goes a long ways in my book. So right now, I am trimming down that 1-inch flash blend Baitfish brush. It's the nice thing about this over, say, deer hair is it's fully synthetic, so it doesn't absorb any moisture. Even if you're epoxying heads or whatever you're doing on your deer hair, that also makes them really stiff and super wind resistant. Now, that's fine for advanced casters, but man, I'm not always dealing with advanced casters, and you get some wind, and the easier you can make it, the better your chances. That's a big thing in streamer fishing that I think it's overlooked, is like, how many times can I replicate what I'm doing before I get tired? The more times you can replicate it, the better your chances of catching fish, because you're going to be able to do it harder and longer. So try to make it as easy as you can on clients. And that's sort of, I mean, that's a big part of guiding. It's a big part of guiding. You know, I musky guide with gear, and there's times I want to watch people throw husky deuces and pounders all the time, and they ain't going to do it very long. So you give them a bucktail. So real simple now. I'm going to kind of flare this brush as I go forward. 1, you know, 2, 2.5, maybe 3 wraps is about all you need. I mean, that's not much product. So you look at the price on these things, and you're like, oh God, those are expensive. But a little bit goes a long ways. You know, I don't know exactly how many flies I can get out of one of these, but it's plenty. One thing I do a lot too is, like, after I build that thread dam, I will go in there and I'll switch to like some GSP. This is why my scissors are dull. Cutting wire, don't do that. Just so I know it's gonna be a little bit smaller on the head. But whatever. It looks like I got a little fluff sticking out, but like I said, man, I ain't building a piano here. I need a small olive and white fly that kicks good that I can catch fish on. And if there's a problem with that, well, there isn't. The fish don't care. So much of this stuff is just for you, the angler, or to sell them. If you're selling them, it does get different. You know, there's a lot of different things to look at. When I'm doing it for myself, oh, I'll get away with murder. So that's basically it. Now you got about a 2.5, 3-inch minnow. It's going to lay down. You got that nice little bulk at the head. This is a dream to cast. There's nothing to it. Super simple fly. Very productive. And I will fish this. You know, I think I tend to see that video is more midsummer, and the smaller stuff always seems to work. I started with something very similar to this, and I was getting some better fish to look at it, but nothing was touching it. So I just went ahead and shifted up to the itty bitty black ghost and absolutely wasted them. Just a little marabou black ghost, which is about the easiest fly in the world to tie. But that's kind of my little mini brush head, man. Low water, low clear water situations, whatever it is. Thing's a killer, and you'll be surprised. You can actually, you don't have to fish it as hard to get maximum action as you do a lot of flies, which is a nice thing. Just a little pop on the line will give you what you need. You can always go back and trim it. I kind of try to keep it at somewhat of an angle, but by building that feather dam and trimming everything up, you know, with that craft fur, it kind of gives you the natural taper anyway. But there's the guy, a little mini brush deceiver. Thanks for checking it out.